This is you. You've just turned 18, or maybe you're 22 and just finished college. Time to move out and get a job, and buy a house. You buy a modest 2,000 square foot home for $14,000. It's small, but it's just a starter home, you remind yourself. You meet a beautiful girl and get married. Soon you have 2 kids running around in your backyard. Life is good. You're watching I Love Lucy while you eat meatloaf. That's right, it's 1958. Now, this is your grandson, Jake. If he's like most people, his monthly paycheck is about $4,000 to $6,000 a month. Rent for a 1-bedroom apartment in his city costs about $2,000 a month. So instead, he lives in a 2-bedroom with a roommate because it's cheaper that way. He has a girlfriend but doesn't plan on getting married soon, but they just got a puppy together, so you could say things are getting serious. Jake thinks he might buy a small 1,500 square foot home, sometime in his late 30s maybe. Or maybe he'll buy a van and live in it forever. #van life. Wait, what? What the hell happened? Isn't housing the bedrock of the American dream? Why is my rent so expensive? Why is buying a house so unattainable? Well, my dear YouTube viewer, a couple things happened. One is straightforward. The second is more complex but more interesting. First, let's start with the easy explanation. In the 1940s, the US added about 9.3 million new housing units. In the 1950s, 15.5 million. We hovered at these levels until the 1990s and 2000s, when new units dropped to 13.4 million and 14.6 million, despite a population about 2.5 times larger than what it was in the 40s. Then, in the 2010s, home construction fell to just 9.2 million. When you adjust for the population difference between 1940 and 2020, housing construction is down 60%. And of course, when supply goes down, price goes up, because now more people are chasing less homes. That's why in 1950, average wage earner had to save for 2.3 years to buy a home. In 1970, 2.4 years. 1980, 3.8 years. 1990, 5.4 years. Today that figure is 10 years, but only 5 years if both members of the household work, which explains a lot about why dual incomes are almost mandatory now. But let's keep that for another video. And that's an average house in America. In Boston, an average home costs $770,000, or about 20 years of Boston's median household income of $99,000. To all the Bostonians watching, hang in there. Okay, this begs the question, why are we building fewer homes these days? Well, let's take a trip down your average street in San Francisco, LA, or Boston. You'll find various welcoming liberal lawn signs, all for good causes, no doubt. All are welcome here. Kindness is everything. But all those lawn signs are sitting in backyards zoned for single-family homes. And those homeowners usually do their best to prevent more homes from being built in their area. All are welcome here, but not in my backyard. Zoning laws that restrict neighborhoods to single-family homes only make it illegal to build duplexes, triplexes, or apartment buildings. In many cities, more than 70% of residential land is zoned this way. Local codes often also require minimum lot sizes, sometimes a quarter acre or more, which prevents building smaller, more affordable homes on the same land. Parking minimums require multiple off-street spaces per unit, making dense development harder. Even when zoning allows for new housing, projects are often delayed by lengthy permitting processes, public hearings, and environmental reviews. Local residents can oppose developments through planning boards or lawsuits, often citing traffic, character, or property values. This opposition is what's commonly referred to as NIMBYism, not in my backyard. The result is fewer homes get built, especially in high-demand areas. This helps preserve high property values in the neighborhood at the expense of everyone else looking for a home. At its most nefarious, this zoning system was used to keep minorities out of certain parts of the city. Take California, for example. California adds far fewer homes per capita than many other states, despite its massive housing demand. In 2023, it issued only about 3 new housing permits per 1,000 residents, far lower than places like Idaho, 10.4, Utah, 9.7, Texas, 7.9, and Florida, 7.6. At the same time, California accounts for roughly 12% of the US population, but nearly 28% of the nation's homeless population. And among those experiencing homelessness in California, about 68% are unsheltered, the highest rate in the country. This mismatch between housing supply and demand helps explain why the state struggles so severely with affordability and homelessness. The truth is, we're simply not building enough homes. The second reason for unaffordable housing is more complex, but also more interesting. Back to the version of you from the 1950s. All the jobs, events, and people you're interested in are in the big city. But downtown is expensive, so you look just outside the city and buy a home in the suburbs. It's just a short 15-minute trip in your new Cadillac, millions of other people realize life's a little more spacious and cheaper per square foot in the suburbs, so this happens all over the country. Soon, most of the land that's closest to the city has been built on already, so over the course of the 60s, 70s, and 80s, people have to go farther and farther away from the city to find a suburb they can afford. But there's only a limit to how far you can reasonably commute in a day. Most people don't want to spend 2 hours in traffic each way, no matter how nice the house is at the end of the drive. Eventually, you hit the edge, geographically, economically, or logistically, of how far people are willing or able to live from where the jobs are. And if you're not allowed to build more homes near the city, and you've run out of land to sprawl into, prices start going up, fast. That's the real bottleneck, transportation. The farther people live from jobs, the more they rely on highways and long car commutes. But we haven't invested nearly enough in transit systems that make outer suburbs feel closer. In most American cities, there's no fast train or reliable bus that connects affordable areas to economic centers. So, once you've filled up the areas within driving distance and refuse to build more densely near transit, you hit a wall. The system can't stretch any farther, and without adding homes where people actually work, demand piles up in a limited space, driving prices through the roof. Now, for a brief second, it seemed we had found a permanent solution to this issue: remote work. If people could do their jobs from anywhere, then maybe they wouldn't need to live near expensive cities at all. You could move to a small town, buy a bigger house for less money, and still keep your job in New York or San Francisco. For a while, that actually happened. People spread out to places like Utah and South Carolina. Housing demand shifted, and some overheated markets cooled slightly, but it didn't last. Many employers brought workers back to the office, at least part-time, and the reality set in: most people still need to live near jobs, or near people whose jobs can't be done remotely, which means geography, zoning, and transportation still matter. A lot. So, that's it in a nutshell. Sure, there are other factors in play like corporate ownership of housing or rising construction costs, but most economic research points to lack of construction and city transportation limits as the root causes of unaffordability. Back to Jake for a second, our friend with 2 roommates and no housing prospects. There are some things on the horizon that could truly change his life. There are new technologies and political movements that could allow him to buy the house of his dreams at a fraction of the cost he ever thought possible. If you want to hear about promising reforms, innovative building methods, and how a better housing future might actually happen, I'll be making a whole video on that. Just hit subscribe to be notified when it comes out. Till then, keep the rent paid, keep the dog walked, and keep hoping, because change might be closer than you think.